then I hit a deer. So, yeah, it's December 23rd. I found out late last month that I had a cracked rear end housing. Luckily it was the rear drive axle on my truck. Um, I called around to a couple shops around here. The ones that would like weld it to fix it, pretty much told me that they could weld it, but they can't guarantee it's not gonna, start leaking in a month or a year or just whenever. So I said, screw it. I'll spend the money and just replace the entire drive axle housing. So that's what I did. So I figured I'd go over the cost of how much it was to get a new drive axle housing put on my truck, and then after that I hit a deer. So we'll go over the damage on that. My grill is damaged. I'll show pictures of it. Um, it's not as bad as it would have been if I didn't have the bumper guard on the front with the bars. So talking about the rear end housing, we'll go ahead and discuss that. We found a crack in the housing under where the spring shackle bolts onto the axle itself. And most of the shops that I called said that they wouldn't. Some would weld it to fix it, but none. The ones that would weld it said that they couldn't guarantee it wasn't going to start leaking again. They said it could last a week, a month, hell, it could last a couple years. So I decided to just go ahead and replace the whole thing. And so that's what we did. I called Peterbilt and got the part number for the rear end housing on my truck. And when I searched for that part number, the only thing that popped up was just a few websites, but it ranged from anywhere between $3,000, which is the one I bought, all the way up to $6,000. But that came with like more parts and stuff like that. Some of the replacement parts that actually just had, the shop that replaced it, they went ahead and got those parts anyway. So just the axle housing was $3,000. It was $3,400 shipped. That's with tax and shipping, shipping LTL freight. I had it shipped to the shop that did the work for me, and so that was $3,400. And then it was pretty much 2 days. It took them 2 days. It was 16 hours of labor at $140 an hour. It comes out to $2,240. And then after all the just random parts and stuff, like he replaced both drive axle seals and a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to go through every single line item, on the receipt. But anyway, that totaled out to $2,783. That's before taxes or anything like that. So my truck went in the shop. We got the rear end done, and then I had to wait till the next week to bring it back to them to have the condenser and the charge air cooler done. I bought a charge air cooler and a condenser from 4State Trucks, both of which said that they were for a Peterbilt 579. It didn't specify the year, which I thought was, at first I thought it was weird, but then I figured, well, if it's 579, maybe on the newer ones, they're still using the same charge air cooler and condenser as the older ones, which mine is an older one. Or it's the older body style. But anyway, they turned out to be wrong. I paid $600 for the charge air cooler and $300 for the condenser, both of which were wrong. So when my truck went in the shop to have the charge air cooler and condenser done, they called me and they said they went to put them on and they didn't line up. The mounting holes and all that stuff didn't line up, and the condenser that I bought was I think it was about 2 inches shorter than the one that was coming off my truck. And then the condenser, it had an O-ring style. The condenser I bought had an O-ring style connectors, and the ones that were on my truck, I can't remember what they told me, but it wasn't the right condenser. So anyway, I needed the day that they were doing all that work, because it was supposed to only go in the shop for a day, and I absolutely needed my truck the next day to go back to work. They called me and they said, we can get one in tomorrow, or I can, it was going to be an aftermarket. It was going to be a little bit cheaper. They said, or we could get one today, but it's going to be OEM from the Peterbilt dealership, and it's going to cost a lot more. So the charge air cooler I bought from 4States was $600, and the condenser was $300. So I paid $900 for those, plus I think I paid $400 for shipping, because I got next day shipping and they were big items. They turned out to be wrong. So then he told me, he said, the ones from the Peterbilt dealership, at least they're going to be OEM. They're going to fit your truck. He said, but the charge air cooler, I'm sitting here looking at it, was $1,050. And the condenser was $911. So I kind of feel like you get what you pay for. When I ordered from the Chrome shop, 4State trucks, and it ended up being the wrong part numbers and wrong. Anyway, so I ended up having to spend, that's $1,900. So yeah, almost $1,000 more, because I bought the wrong parts. At least I'll be able to send those back. I don't think they refund shipping. Do they? Maybe they do. I don't know. I haven't sent back anything to 4States in a long time. But anyway, if I do get refunded shipping, that'll be $1,400 I get back. If not, then it's $900. So anyway, they finally got the new condenser and charge air cooler that day. Got them installed. I got the rear end done. The total cost of everything, getting the rear end housing installed, or buying the rear end, getting it installed, and buying the additional parts for the charge air cooler and condenser and getting those installed, all the miscellaneous parts and labor that go into that, the complete total was $9,341. Now that is not counting the wrong charge air cooler and condenser that I ordered. So if you want to factor that in, that's $10,741 that I spent. And of course, if I get that $1,400 back, then it goes back down to $9,000. So it goes to show, just getting a rear end done, and that was the rear drive axle. If it was the front drive axle, I would have. He was telling me it would be much, a few more hours of labor and all that stuff, because it's, just a lot more to work around as far as getting that axle out versus the rear one. The rear one, they could just lift up the frame, roll it out, do everything they got to do to it, and then roll the new one in. So yeah, in the course of like 2 weeks, because I got the rear end ordered and all that stuff, and then a few days later is when I hit the deer, and luckily it didn't cause more damage, because I'd probably, had I not had those bars on the front of my truck, the guard, I'd probably be looking at, I probably would have been had to been towed, and I was loaded at the time. Plus, I'd probably need a new hood, headlights, all that stuff. It would have been a lot worse. I'd probably be looking at $20,000 or $30,000 in damage. Okay, maybe not 30, but I'd probably be looking at least 20 grand. So it's I budgeted, like, in my head. I mean, it costs what it costs. I'm going to spend the money. But in my head, I was like, okay, if this is like 12 grand to get everything done, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to like freak out or anything. And it came out to, I've spent $10,741, which $1,400 of that I could potentially get back by sending in the parts. So just under, if we do that, then just under 10 grand for two major things that happened in the last 2 weeks. So it just goes to show, if you hit a deer and you screw up other stuff, it gets expensive. And then if you need a new rear end housing, you're looking at minimum $6,000 to $7,000. Yeah, so that's if you have a shop do it. If you do it yourself, obviously it's going to be cheaper. But anyway, figured I'd get on here and share that. Gotta spend money to make money. Making money and you're spending money and all right, yep. I'm gonna go home.